Welcome to the Cyber Risk Management Podcast. Our mission is to help executives thrive as cyber risk managers. Your hosts are Kip Boyle, Virtual Chief Information Security Officer at Cyber Risk Opportunities, and Jake Bernstein, Partner at the law firm of K&L Gates. Visit them at cr-map.com and klgates.com.
So, Kip, what are we going to talk about today on episode 118 of the Cyber Risk Management Podcast?
Hey, Jake, thanks for asking. Today, we're going to do something really cool. We've got a guest today. We're going to look at the relationship between business and cybersecurity in a way we really haven't done before. And I'm so excited because our guest is Peter Hitschler. He's the Chief Operating Officer and General Manager of an organization called TriTech Manufacturing that's actually located not too far from where you and I live here in the South Seattle area. And Peter's just got this really fascinating situation going on, and we're going to hear about how he uses his cybersecurity program in his business. I think it's going to be just fantastic. Peter, thanks so much for being our guest. Welcome to the podcast. Would you tell us a little bit more about you and about your company, TriTech, please?
Sure. Good morning, Jake. Good morning, Kip. Nice to see you here this morning. And yes, TriTech Manufacturing is a unique outfit, a company that exists since 1972. So we got 50 years under our belt. It started out as a very much family-owned company from Mr. Buzz, senior and juniors. And I got two guys that are still with us, actually, as of today. And we are in the process of actually a company that manufactures equipment for Navy only. And these are actuators, valves, things of that nature that go on the ship from the bow all the way up to the captain. So basically, we are putting everything in there that is transporting fuel and regulates fire extinguishers, these kind of things that we are manufacturing. So our customer is, like I said, the Navy and pretty much shipyards around the country. There's other companies that are like Oslo, the Ingalls family, the Newport News shipyard. There is a whole slew of them. I can't even name them all. There's Eastern and the South, there's San Diego, and there's Bremerton, and so on and so forth. And we are a provider of actuators since 1972, as I said. And these are kind of cool little things that are manufactured. They look like a little metal box, and you wouldn't think that there's a bunch of regulators, electronics in there that kind of keep things flowing in case there's a fire. They transport fuel. They make sure that all the required things such as water go through the ship and the system, and we built these things, and it's fascinating to look at them. I mean, they go in from a submarine into the aircraft carrier, so we are servicing a broad spectrum there.
Yeah.
Wow.
And the ships won't leave port without these things. So this is critical. I mean, you could say that this is a critical component of kind of the defense industrial base.
That is correct. And you got this completely right, Jake. Because some of these features, they have to be tested thoroughly for flush. They have to be tested in real time before a ship can leave the port. Like fire extinguisher systems, they have to be fully tested and make sure that they are working. We have to make sure that the fuel supply can be transported from A to B, from a tank 1, tank 2, tank 3, into their diesel or any other engine type. I won't speak too much of it, what is on the ships, because I would violate certain rules and regulations, and I don't want to get in trouble with the guys in the 3 letters and come and visit me here after the meeting. So...
Yeah.
I mean, these are important things. I mean, these ships, they usually takes a year to 18 months before they truly they're seaworthy, so to speak.
So, and I think what you just said was quite interesting, right? Is that you've got information that is probably at least, I mean, it's at least confidential in kind of the civilian sense of the word, but is it, you may have classified information. You definitely have what's called controlled unclassified information, which is anyone who's listening who deals with CMMC and 800-171 would definitely know that phrase. Interestingly enough, I am working on a deal right now where these things are all involved. And so I guess to steal Kip's question, you're the COO, Chief Operating Officer, and the General Manager. So how are you involved in the cybersecurity program? Because with all of this information, I assume you have one.
I do. Thanks for bringing this up. And yes, I mean, we are dealing in a lot of facets of clearance levels, starting with confidential, secret, top secret, and then there is a Q level, which we are in the process of getting for a facility, since we are going to land a contract coming forward in the first quarter, where this will be required to have certain people in our company having Q clearance. So it is important. And how do I get involved in IT? To go back to your question there, Jake, how did I get back to this? I started in this company as their initially director of operations and general manager last year in spring. And I came on board in a very peculiar time, so to speak, because they went through, they had a virus intrusion, call it that. So there was somebody trying to hack into the system that placed the virus, put the entire system in jeopardy, and shut it pretty much down. So, and I came in after the fact. Everything was reported as we should have been. It was reported to DoD, the Navy, and NCIS, and so on and so forth. But we had hired different companies and IT folks that supposedly knew a lot about cybersecurity. And I'm coming from the world of cybersecurity all in all. I worked for companies like Lockheed. I worked for Goodrich Landing Gear and was participating for many years in the S-35 program in the developmental phase since 2009 through 2013, when the first 40 aircraft were basically airworthy and ready. So, and over there was a big thing about cybersecurity. And I'm not sure if you or anybody in this podcast is listening to has heard about it, but 2012, Lockheed faced a big crisis because they had a breach in security, in cybersecurity, and things kind of started to wander off to countries we all know about. There's mainly one, I don't want to bring it up too much about, but everybody is pretty much aware of that. So, and I basically walked into it and I saw there was a little disarray. So go back to our company, TriTech. And the people that they were engaged in with to solve the issue, just started to look at spending a lot of money without really addressing the problem of cybersecurity, which is actually something that needs to be brought in the forefront, because there's firewalls, there's switches, there's boxes, there's all kinds of things that need to be addressed and secured. The internet is wide open, as we know. There's a bunch of folks out there that are trying to get information, enter or break into a cyber system or IT systems in order to garner information and possibly sell them to our enemies. God knows, God forbid it happens. Anyway, we protected ourselves, and we were actually, after we established a new firewall, new equipment, we were pretty well protected at the end. However, we did not have good protocols, good rules and regulations as they're required by COI in general and CMMC rules and regulations. Not that we are at level 5, which is nuclear, but we are actually at level 3. This is where pretty much everything ends in the normal world, so to speak. Since we are not a nuclear power plant, call it this. Even though we're kind of stepping into now some programs that require some Q clearance, as I said in the onset. That once that is all established, we had a company, again, go back to this, and that took charge of cybersecurity, which was, in my opinion, after discussing that pretty much in our weekly meetings, insufficient in my book. So we decided to take it in our own hands, and I engaged with my IT manager, Marvin Wells, who is the broadest guy in IT that I ever could have encountered. The man knows a lot, and he knows people. And so he helped us to really get into it and kind of close the gaps that we had, close the breaches that were available to the outside to kind of break in. So we basically shut down the curtain, put some good locks on it, and made sure that those kind of events like cyber breach cannot happen again. So, and we are very engaged in that because we do want to keep our customer base with just the government, the U.S. Navy. And if you have vulnerabilities such as cybersecurity is not totally inactive, you may not end up with contracts, and you may as well shut your doors down. So I had to make sure that these things are being addressed.
So it's, I mean, this is the highest level of seriousness when it comes to the government contractors and cybersecurity. And we haven't, I mean, Kip, you're right. We haven't talked a lot about this on the podcast somehow after over 117 episodes. But
better late than never.
Better late than never. Yeah. There's a lot. I mean, I'm just seeing a lot of news and kind of industry attention being paid to what I don't know how long it's called. It's been called the DIB, the Defense Industrial Base, but I've certainly been seeing that a lot recently.
Yeah.
Including with CMMC, which stands for, what is it? Cybersecurity Maturity Model Certification or something like that.
Certification, yeah.
Yeah. And I know there was a version 1 and now there's a version 2. And if I follow some guys, shout out if you're listening, you know who you are, on LinkedIn, who talk a lot about CMMC. And there's just a lot of, I don't want to say controversy is not the right word. It's more of a confusion, I think, within the defense industrial base about CMMC, what the different levels mean, how it interacts with NIST 800-171 and 853.
Well, even DoD is struggling to figure out.
And even DoD is struggling.
What is this
Correct.
program? Like, what's reasonable? Because you got a lot of organizations that are on the smaller side, right? Lockheed Martin's enormous. Then you got, TriTech and other companies that are not nearly as big as Lockheed Martin. And how much can they really afford to spend on, protecting secrets, or and in the case you said, Jake, it's sensitive but unclassified, right? Which is really, I think, the target and so there's a lot of confusion because even the DoD doesn't really know, right? This is all nascent. They're trying to figure it out. Peter, what's that like for you to be somebody who is being asked to comply with a program that is either constantly shifting or completely in the gray zone all the time?
Well, Kip, you're touching a very active point that I'm thinking of pretty much every day. How can we make this whole thing better? Listening and reading about all these variances that people are bringing out there. Even as you said, DoD doesn't sometimes appear not to really be totally in tune with what is CMMC, what is NIST, what does it really mean? I mean, they put it into the D4s and 4s. It's all spelled out, but there is always an addendum to this. Then there's another addendum coming out, and so on and so forth. So you're basically in the constant education status. So you kind of have to read up on it. You have to make yourself smart about it. And it is a challenge on a daily basis. So, and if you are not on top of it, you'll be the one losing at the end of it, because it is to be established in NIST and as well as CMMC. You spend quite a bit of money, and it goes into the 6 figures. I mean, I'm not saying because we spent a little bit in the higher end due to the fact we were, involved in one of those breaches.
Yeah.
Last year we had to spend a humongous amount on replacing some of our hardware, etc. But in general, for somebody that is up to par with their entire equipment, it's going to still cost them 6 figures. And you have to train people. You have to create training videos that are going into separate classifications, say it that way. So people have to be educated. So a machinist will have to still utilize IT, but they're not going to be that deep into CMMC or respectively NIST.
Right.
But people like an engineering department and the senior leadership like myself, we have to be current with everything that's going on out there. And I'm very adamant about that we are compliant 100%. It is imperative to us to be on top of everything. And I make it my daily mission that this needs to be done the right way, or just don't do it at all.
I'd love to talk about that a little bit more. So, Peter, lots of our other customers delegate this responsibility. A senior decision maker such as yourself would delegate this and would not be as involved as you seem to be on a daily basis. But you believe that it's important to be involved on a daily basis. Is that related to reputation, or like how would you describe your concern that would justify you spending so much time personally on on data protection and cybersecurity?
It is my responsibility as an executive of this company. Number one, I have to protect the company at all costs, so to speak, and I will do everything to make that happen and not fail. This is one. It is important that I'm involved because I can delegate all kinds of things, like my team manager can do a bunch of things, or I can delegate to HR for training purposes and the video that we have created for the cybersecurity. But again, I want to be in the middle of it and want to make sure we cross our T's, dot our I's. Mm-hmm. So I do go out there, talk to my peers that are working for us here, and ask them sometimes some questions. So how's your cybersecurity going on? What are you doing with your email here and there? Because we do have a firewall. We do have a system that gives us messages if something is suspicious. So I do have some control functions out there because they show up on my morning screen on the computer if I'm getting my firewall up and see what happened in my Barracuda and things that have been flagged. And I'm going to go and talk to these people. Why are you doing X, Y, and Z? And I mean, it never happens anything difficult or complicated or illegal, but there's something that can trigger intrusion. So if you go certain websites and they have not been blocked by a firewall, for instance, and I find out, I'm going to make sure from my end that the entire company is aware that this is a potential for intrusion from the outside. So I have to make sure they're aware of it. So there's going to be memos coming out that are being directed towards my IT manager / HR. Those two kind of get together, put memos out to the company and employees that are pertinent to that information, and they will receive that, and they have to follow those obligations. Does that make sense?
Oh, absolutely. I think most people in your situation would probably feel that way. What I think is remarkable is just how hands-on you are.
Yeah, I mean, it's part of me. I've seen Lockheed Martin struggle in 2012, and it's just still in front of my eyes still. It may have been 10 years from now, or from today. 10 years is a long time. However, I mean, I've seen so many things happen out there in real life that just make me be very mindful and cautious.
Yeah. And so this is a top issue for you.
It is a top issue. I mean, security and cybersecurity is a top issue because without cybersecurity, I can't protect our Navy. I can't protect our products that we are selling. We do have militarized equipment that has certain softwares, I can say that much, on there that I do not plan on sharing. Because this is, I mean, protected. It's IP, intellectual property, as well as security for the Navy that's been given to us by the Navy. And we have to implement it in the system, so they can connect internally their entire systems to our product to make sure it is controlled and being viewed as secure.
And one of the things that we often hear, maybe not as much right now, but certainly in the past, was, we don't have anything that anybody would want, so why do we have to be so careful? Now, you arguably know that there are countries out there that want this information and want the IP, want to understand this stuff. Does that affect how you approach cybersecurity? I mean, obviously, it will affect how you approach cybersecurity, but maybe how does it? How do you use that to kind of really hammer home the importance to all the staff, right? I mean, I think that's one of the tricks with cybersecurity is having an overall security-based culture, and in a lot of companies that's challenging. Have you found that to be challenging in the defense industrial base, or are people kind of like, no, we get it?
I see both. And it's pretty much a 50-50 split here. I mean, certain people, like you said, Jake, I don't have anything here that is really of interest to anybody. You have no idea. There may be a little widget of whatever, those folks out there, they make something out of it. They get a whiff of something small that you think is not pertinent, and you may not realize that particular widget goes into some defense module, defense equipment, weaponry, whatever it might be, or radar systems.
No, that's a good point.
No idea.
That's a good point right there. Is you just might not know.
Correct, because you're selling it to some company X. I mean, I may be a buyer or something from a company out there that buys certain computer chips, and they're thinking, oh, that's just a computer chip or whatever, there's nothing fancy. But if you see the whole picture overall and you take the 30,000 feet view of this entire thing, then you say, wait a minute, this thing can go into a PCB board. This PCB board goes into let's stick with actuators. This may control certain operations within the actuator. So, and it gives messages to the control boards over all the computer system on a ship, on an aircraft, on a tank, for that matter. And then you're stuck with it. And if this thing goes out, you jeopardize security in general. And to me, it's nothing more important than to secure armed forces, make sure the sons and daughters that are out there, our daughters and sons, come home the way they left, in one piece. Because I don't want them to be harmed, and we are part of this big conglomerate, call it, of suppliers that helps our government to stay secure. And I think it is my utmost responsibility to make sure everything that we produce is 100% safe, 100% secure, and brings our kids home.
It kind of reminds me of the Stuxnet, right, where there were some computer controllers on the uranium enrichment centrifuges, which were manipulated, which caused them to fail or to, not achieve the purity of the enrichment that they were going for. And really, it was plumbing, right? It was it was the electromechanical aspects of running the centrifuges that was manipulated. I would think conceptually that's what you're talking about, Peter, right?
That is correct, because you got this exactly right, Kip. Because if these little things can interrupt an entire nuclear power plant, a little something that they get their hands on and can intrude from the outside, manipulate it in that way that the software created, there's some way for them to, call it hacking in, and they can start controlling, taking over controls, and just go and run with it. And they basically can interrupt everything, and they can make life a living hell for that particular country, for that particular animal that you're trying to intrude in the ship, the aircraft, and they can bring these things down. And that can cost lives. And I think it's nothing more precious than life of our soldiers, and we need to protect it. Again, I have to come back to that. That's part of me. This is why I'm so engaged and involved. And people think I'm overdoing it sometimes, that I'm so involved in it. And I said, you know what? I don't care what you think. I think to me and to the company, it's important that I'm involved, because I'm a chief executive here that has responsibility. And I don't like the boys and girls from the 3-letter company show up at my doorstep, flash their golden badges and say, where's your orange jumpsuit? I'm not planning on doing that.
Right.
That's great.
Well, and I think, it's I think there's just listening to, to this conversation, there's, sometimes I feel like there's a lack of seriousness in the world right now, just like, just around all sorts of topics. Like, everything is to some degree, a joke, whether it's politics or the economy or COVID-19. And I think that it's important to remember that a great deal of the world, it remains very serious, whether we want to take it seriously or not. And for the defense industrial base, cybersecurity is no joke, right? It is of the utmost seriousness, because you're exactly right. I mean, I think the Stuxnet example is great, because those were little actuators, right? We're talking about almost the same type of thing. And if you think about what happened with Stuxnet and just the risk that is run, I mean, if we automatically could just know all the potential ways that these items could be misused, that would be handy, wouldn't it? But the fact is that, by definition, attacks like that are built off of vulnerabilities and possibly 0 days that, by definition, nobody planned to have those there. That's why you have to remain vigilant. That's why you have to have the processes and the policies, and to always follow them.
Yeah, spot on there, Jake. I 100% agree. And not to forget, if something happens to this company, the reputation, not only mine, I don't care so much about myself. I care about the reputation of our company. And if something happens and we deliver product that has been put on the spot, or something has been brought onto a chip on the motherboard in one of our products, and it goes out there and the we lose the ship in the sea out in let's say in a crisis. The reputation of TriTech is down the toilet. Forgive my blunt language on this, but I believe it's important that everybody in a position similar to mine makes it their utmost and foremost responsibility to preserve reputation, preserve security, and make sure that the product that you deliver is 100% secure and not jeopardized or creates havoc in any product of any final product that was delivered is going to be on there. And then we jeopardize lives and whatnot. We may lose a war or whatever that might be, including people may think I'm overthinking this a little bit. Hey, that's their opinion, I think. But you know what? I make sure we are safe. Our reputation is not in jeopardy over here, and we deliver a sound product that is second to none. That's important to us. And that secures employment for 60 families in here that are working for me. And I have to make sure that I can deliver their paychecks. Subsequently, they get food. And we have a product that we send out there to the Navy. And the Navy is, in my book, from our end at least, I can say secure.
Yep. Kip, you want to ask about the team sport concept here? I think it's probably a good time for that.
Well, actually, I think you already did a great job of prompting Peter on that note. What I was actually interested in is the False Claims Act, because we recently did an episode on the Lincoln Law, right, about how the federal government's using the False Claims Act to sanction defense contractors that are not telling the truth about, how well they're protecting the data. And I just figured, as the attorney on the show, it was your, first right of refusal to ask that question.
Oh, well, I didn't scroll far enough down the script here, but I think, we just saw a major company. I think it was Aerojet Rocketdyne, or is that the name of it?
Yep. Rocketdyne, yeah.
And they are, their products took us to the moon, literally. So they've been around a long time. And Peter, the False Claims Act is probably going to come up more and more. And I don't know how familiar you are with it, but essentially it allows the federal government or private individuals to blow the whistle on anybody who's selling things to the government. And I think it doesn't sound like you need that additional motivation. I think you've got that down. But it is worth pointing out that when you're a government contractor, there is always the False Claims Act out there. And that's one of the things it's going to be used for, is you're supposed to have this level of cybersecurity. You said you did, which is generally what happens. And let me put it this way. You're not going to get the contract if you say, oh, actually, we're not really secure, like we're not ready for that. Hopefully most companies are honest about that. And they might even the thing about cybersecurity is they may believe they're honest, or they may not fully know. And I think that's really the scary thing about cybersecurity with the False Claims Act, is that, people think that it's like, it's a false claim, so therefore you must have known you were making it. I don't think that's always true. Right. And there's not really an intent factor here. It's what was actual reality.
And it's hard to prove. Yeah.
It is very hard to prove. It's very hard to prove. And I'm just curious, does that, do you have any strong thoughts about the use of this Lincoln Law?
Well, the Lincoln Law is a whistleblower act, whichever way you want to call it. It's an important feature out there. And I believe folks that know about something that is or companies that make a statement, hey, I'm secure, I'm cyber secure, because I believe so, it's not enough. And if somebody knows in my company that I have a loophole somewhere and they're not talking to me about it, then I'm making a statement out there, hey, I'm cyber secure. On SPRS, I'm listed. I got my CMMC level 3, etc. It's all on there. They call it basic, and it's there because I have to recertify every year. I have to be sure that I'm do what I say and say what I do. And if I have somebody out here that tells me, Peter, you're in jeopardy because this and this is a loophole that you can be intruded by, and this is not, or it's jeopardizing your cybersecurity, I will take action. And if I don't, then I am as guilty as charged that I'm making a false claim. Agreed. And that for it puts me in jeopardy, and I will raise hell if I ever do that. It's one thing I will never do, make a false statement, because I hate orange jumpsuits. Trust me. I'm not into that. So I don't want to engage lawyers on that particular side. I'm engaging in having drinks or play golf or whatever, in case anybody wants to. And I have a bunch of lawyer friends. And this is why I'm very mindful of that. Whatever I say has to be the truth and nothing but the truth. And I have nothing against people that I go out there and play the whistleblower because their bosses may be rejecting the reality that they're in violation of that law, call it that. Yep. And then they should pay the consequences. That's my opinion. I mean, people may think I'm a little brutal. Fine, be it, then I am. But I'm willing to put my head on the table for this company because I can say for certainty that we are cyber secure. And if there is something that is not 100% right, I'm shutting the system down and fix that particular problem until I'm 100% certain, hey, I am cyber secure again. Because if I don't do that, I'm guilty as charged and I might as well forget everything because my values go out the door. And I have values that are more important to me than anything else.
Well, I don't think there's any questions about where you stand on the False Claims Act, Peter. Thank you so much for weighing in on that. As we come to the end of the episode, I had one more question for you, which is, and I think you've talked about this, but I would love to just hear, a straightforward thought from you about the benefits of a strong cybersecurity program, and your level of involvement with it. You had said to me before that it really frees you up to focus on the business goals if you have a strong cybersecurity program. Did I hear you correctly? And how does that work from your point of view?
Well, cybersecurity is one of the base poles that I have to have in place, measurements to make sure this company can survive and live. In order to be successful in the business with working with the government, you have to have cybersecurity. It's one important item to make a stool stand up straight, so to speak. If that leg is missing on my stool, I'm going to fall. I'm going to fold the company, and I'm not planning on doing that. So it is important to be successful in a business. I have to have a cybersecurity that backs me up and makes sure that I am legit, that I am secure, and I can deal with the government and everything else without having to think, oh, wait a minute, did I do this thing right? Or is there something maybe that I'm missing here? So I don't want to have second guesses or doubts about something. So I have to make sure to have my security in place, my cybersecurity, that is, as well as security, but that's for a different day maybe to talk about. And then I can say my product and whatever we deliver is 100%.
Yeah. So you'll have confidence, you'll have peace of mind, you'll know that you're representing the products that you sell accurately. Yeah, that makes a ton of sense to me. Well, Peter, thanks so much for agreeing to be our guest on the show. Really appreciate your perspective on this topic. If somebody wanted to connect with you, if a listener of the audience wanted to speak with you, or just find out more about TriTech, how would you like them to do that?
Well, they can always reach out by our website. We have www.tritechmfg.com. And then we also have a phone line. I have a phone line. I'm also on LinkedIn. You can reach out to me at any time. Send me an email to Hitschler, PHITSCHLER at TriTech, TRITECMFG.com. And I'm happy to assist. If I can answer questions anytime, please feel free to reach out.
That's super generous of you. Thanks so much. Jake, did you have any last questions or comments for Peter?
No, I think this has been a great episode because I think it's a little different perspective than we often bring, and I think the viewpoint from, first of all, having a government contractor, but also just a business leader who's also so heavily involved in cybersecurity is really refreshing. And I think that going forward into the future, it's likely to become a requirement, whether it's a practical requirement or a legal requirement. That's probably not clear yet. But I do think that the days of certainly the board being able to kind of not worry about cybersecurity have ended.
Yeah. And I'm so glad, Peter, you joined us, because I really do think you're a model for what senior decision makers are going to have to do in the future with respect to data protection and systems protection. So I just love that we got to share you with our audience. Yeah, well, that wraps up this episode of the Cyber Risk Management Podcast. And today we took a look at the relationship between cybersecurity and business in a way we've never done before. And we did that with our guest, Peter Hitschler. He's the Chief Operating Officer and General Manager at TriTech Manufacturing. Thanks so much again, Peter. Hey, everybody, we'll see you next time.
See you next time.
Thanks for joining us today on the Cyber Risk Management Podcast. If you need to overcome a cybersecurity hurdle that's keeping you from growing your business profitably, then please visit us at cr-map.com. Thanks for tuning in. See you next time.